Where's the fella? Actually worked out fine. Why are they being so weird? We go to this like African doesn't really say much.
Wow.
Why are we so fascinated by the Liberty Bell? What is it about this? Isaac Norris, Speaker of the Colonial Pennsylvania Assembly, ordered a bell with a biblical inscription for the State House in Philadelphia. Originally called the State House Bell, it would later be known by a name familiar to all.
Let the bell be cast by the best workman, with the following words well shaped.
And on July 8, 1776, an eager crowd gathered there to hear John Nixon give the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths.
The city's bells rang out in celebration, so loud and so glorious that John Adams wrote,
"The bells rang all day and all night."
Slavery would stay natural for decades to come. In the 1830s, the abolitionists fighting slavery adopted the State House bell with its powerful inscription as a symbol of their cause. An abolitionist publication, the Anti-Slavery Record, referred to it as the Liberty Bell. In a poem written a few years later demanded,
Bring it to a slave be free.
thus, the Pennsylvania State House bell became America's Liberty Bell.
First thing, if anyone is curious, I'm about to explain to this young gentleman right here how the bell got cracked. And again, like I told him, I will tell y'all, it's not a very exciting story. I will let you know, Benjamin Franklin didn't drop the bell, didn't get shot by the British, nothing so exciting. Essentially what happened to the bell is the same thing that happens to most items that break, which is just that we used it for a very long time, and it just broke kind of slowly. If you've heard that phrase like metal fatigue, I mean, metal gets tired too. Essentially, can you guys see this little crack here that starts with the letter P in Philadelphia? Yeah, it has to come, so feel free. So this little crack here, it starts with the letter P, that's what the first crack would have looked like. So it would have started at the bottom of the bell, and then slowly over years it would have gotten worse. And what you see here, where this gap is, where this giant hole is, if you guys learn one thing today, that is not a crack. That is not how bells crack. That was actually them trying to fix the crack that was there. And the reason why is that when you have a cracked bell, like right here, what happens is every time you ring the bell, the two sides of the crack rub together, and it's that friction that actually causes the crack to travel up and get worse. And it also causes the bell to sound out of tune. So when they realized that that was the case, this is in 1846, they decide they're going to try to fix the bell. And to kind of answer, well, when did the first crack happen? We don't know because it happened gradually. It got worse and worse. So we don't really have an exact date of when that first crack started. But what we know that is that by President's Day, 1846, although back then they were celebrating George Washington's birthday, they were like, okay, we're going to fix the bell and we're going to do what's called a stopgap repair. So where you see where this hole has been drilled out, that is an intentional way to fix a bell. It's usually a great way of fixing a bell. The bell inside of Big Ben has been fixed this way, for example. You guys have probably heard bells that have been fixed this way, and you wouldn't even know it because it works so well, they stay up in the tower. In the Liberty Bell's case, they did a bad job. They did not do a very good job. Probably what happened was that they didn't drill up as high as they needed to. So when they started ringing the bell, they were like, oh yay, we fixed it, huzzah, it sounds so good. But a couple hours later, it sounds really, really bad. They're maybe thinking, maybe we didn't do such a good job. They go up in the tower and they check. That's where they see that where they had stopped the repair, there's now a second crack. So it starts at the letter P in Philadelphia, goes up through the RTY in Liberty, actually goes all the way to the very top of the bell. So even though that little tiny hairline crack is so small, that actually is fatal. That's what we call the fatal crack, because if you kept ringing the bell, it could break into 2 different pieces. So that's why we never ring the bell after that day. We do have other things that we call like tapping, so I can get into that if you guys like, but really, at that point, the bell becomes a display item only. So to kind of answer a question of like, well, how did the bell crack? I'll summarize it. There's 2 cracks. The first crack, wear and tear. Second crack, bad repair. It rhymes, so it's easy to remember. You guys can take that with you. That's my gift. And for those of y'all who walked out just now, make sure you look at the letter P in Philadelphia, catch a look at the real crack. But beyond that, while I have this attention, I just kind of want to point out that, ironically enough, the Liberty Bell did not get its name because of the crack. It didn't get its name because of what happened in 1776. But the reason why the Liberty Bell got its name is actually has everything to do with its inscription. So if you have the time today, I encourage y'all, like, walk around the bell, proclaim liberty throughout all the land and to all the inhabitants thereof. That is a verse from the Bible that's talking about freeing slaves. So what happened in the 1830s, before we even realized that the bell was cracked, was that an abolitionist thought, well, there's a bell inside of Independence Hall that's telling us to free slaves. This is the perfect symbol for my movement. And that is what makes the Liberty Bell become the Liberty Bell.
Any bank, you can withdraw it when you're done. That's up to you. I'm not your mom or your chaperone, right? When you go in, no eating or drinking inside. You gotta keep your beverages closed and sealed. Take all the photos you want, take as many pictures as you like, but you have to make sure your phones are on silent. You don't want your ringer to be the one that goes off right in the middle of the tour. Just imagine, I don't usually call people out, but you'll stare at that person and you'll make them feel real appropriately uncomfortable. That being said, the tour goes to the 2nd floor. The stairs are rather steep. You are not required to go up. If you're unable to join us, there's a virtual tour on tablet we can also provide for you. But if you choose to go up, you have to come down. Okay? That being No, it's not optional. Let's go on inside. Name preference, not
Yep, watch your step.
You guys can stay right on the other side of the aisle. Got a small group. And ours.
Welcome to Congress Hall.
Well, you guys, other side of the aisle. Grab a chair, grab a seat.
That will be your guide for the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. Welcome to Congress Hall. Congress Hall is a building that I like to call a historic hidden gem. Alright. How many of you guys have been to or today have been inside the Independence Hall? Anybody here been inside the hall? Good people. Okay. Right. So you come to Philadelphia, you know, things you need to see the Liberty Bell, right? You can get a cheesesteak, you need to come visit Independence Hall. But nobody ever really says, oh, you must go visit Congress. But hopefully after this tour, I can convince you to go home and tell your friends and family they come to Philadelphia to come and visit Congress Hall. And hopefully I'll do a good job of that. Great. Let me tell you, before I tell you about the stories, right, let me tell you about the building and the place you're in. Usually when I go somewhere on vacation and I'm visiting, first thing I ask is, what's original, right? Tell me about the building, what's original? So let's get that out of the way. Let me tell you a little bit about the building. So the building is Georgian brick, right? It started construction after we know all the things about decoration and all that, right? It started in 1787, so it wasn't even in the picture back in 1776, right? And it was completed, right, in 1789. It was supposed to be a county courthouse, right? That's the state house. This is for the county, right? So when the area, right, the county hears that people, that Congress is thinking about Philadelphia being the capital, right? They start enticing everybody with this beautiful brand new building, right? And so that's what happened. Congress ended up borrowing this space for 10 years, all right? So, brick Georgian style. The furnishings were based off the only other building that they had known, which was Federal Hall, right? But we have one thing up and over Federal Hall, and that's, this is the oldest Capitol building because Federal Hall is a reconstruction, all right? And what you're looking at is original to 1790, all right? Now, the inside, let me tell you a little bit about that. So, it would have looked a little bit different, right? 1790, we had a thing called the census, right? What the census does, it decides population, right? It decides how many people are here. So, the original members of the House of Representatives, who would have been down here, totaled 65. So you probably would have had this side covered over here, right? But after the census, they realized that they were off in their number and in their count. That it jumped from 65 all the way up to 106. So where are they going to put those other new members of representatives? Well, they have to add them. So you guys are all sitting in what's considered the new addition, right? 1793, 26 feet were extended onto the building. It allowed for more representatives down here, but then it also gave us the Senate chamber, the nice 50 Senate chamber that you guys will hopefully be able to go and see after I'm finished talking, right? So And because, right, we went up in representatives, we also went up in Senate, senators, and I'll tell you how that happened. All right, we're looking at this trusty map here. Who can tell me how many states we started out with? Call it out. How many did we start out with? 13, right? 13 original colonies, right? But in the 10-year time period that they are here, right, we had 3 new states. So holler if you're from any of these new states. Anybody here visiting from Vermont? Vermont was number 14, right? We have good old Kentucky down here is number 15. Anybody visiting from Kentucky? All right. How about Tennessee? Nobody. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, Vermont, Kentucky, Tennessee ended up being our 14th, 15th, and 16th state. So we go from 26 to 32 senators in the 10 years that we're here. All right. Another bit of historic first, all right, besides adding some states, is that we helped out our banking system, right? Before banking system, I don't know if you guys have heard the story. Every state printed their own money. So even if you're from across the river in New Jersey, you would have to figure out how to get your money to work here in Pennsylvania if you were coming over to hang out for the day, right? It's very, very, very confusing. So a guy by the name of Alexander Hamilton, have you heard of him? Yes, he has a Broadway musical. Yes, Alexander Hamilton, right? So he's our treasury guy, right? And he says, I have a solution, right? If you pass my funding bill, right, and you help me out, we're going to have a whole new banking system. And there are some people that aren't too keen on that idea, especially some people down in the South, right? And so he was like, okay, figure this out. I need help with my banking system, and I'm going to help you. But first, it has to pass. So it passes, which is great. And because it passes, we now have currency. We create the first bank of the United States, right? And we also create the federal mint. So now we have some universal currency going on, making it much easier, right? Also, the bank is taking on the state's debt, so we're able to pay back all the loans that we had during the war, right? So, South was like, great, we gave you all your banking stuff, now what are you going to do for us? So there's a little thing called the Compromise of 1790, right? 1790, Hamilton has this thing that needs to pass. The South is like, look, we want us to help you, do something for us. We want to work closer to home. All right, Philadelphia is too far for us to go. So we want to work closer to home. So the Compromise of 1790 pretty much says, hey look, we'll give you the country capital along the Potomac, right? Make it easier for those southern states to be able to get to work, right? But in the meantime, while we're building it, right, we're going to make Philadelphia the temporary capital. And that's our compromise, right? Does everyone ask, why Philadelphia? Why did Philadelphia become this sort of magnet for the U.S. government? First thing is 40,000 people, which was maybe the largest city outside of like European cities like London and Paris, right? So it was ideal with the fact that there was a lot of stuff already happening and going on. So it was good for that, right? Also, it was a good midway point. You know, people from the north to be able to come down, people from the south to be able to come up, right? And so that's why they decided 1790, this is going to be your state capital for 10 years, right? Side note for Washington, D.C., if you didn't know. So Congress was here until about 1800. In December of 1799, Congress got word that Washington had passed, right? He died. And so one of their last sort of acts here in Philadelphia before they moved out to D.C. is that they decided to erect a monument to honor the great George Washington, right? Does anybody know which monument they were talking about? Washington Monument. You guys heard about that in D.C.? Yeah. So Congress decided in this space, right, they would erect a monument to honor George Washington, right? And then they also declared his birthday a national holiday in this as well, right? Senate chamber would have been where Washington was inaugurated or took the oath of office for the second term, right? So he was inaugurated and sworn in up in Federal Hall the very first time. The second time around, he's going to do it upstairs in the Senate chamber, right? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the most fascinating thing for me that I learned when I was learning about Congress Hall is the fact of we're so used to sort of politics today or whatever, we really don't think about how things are different back in the day. What was different back in the day is there was no such thing as political parties, right? People just kind of, had their beliefs and then, believe what they wanted and then that kind of swayed them to go one way or the other, but there wasn't really anything to say, if you believe this, right, you're going to be this party, if you believe this, you're going to be on this side. Right? So while they were here, there were a lot of things that they would go back and forth about, things that they would disagree on. And so you sort of had this forming, of what we know as political parties today. Now, they're not going to be the same parties that we're familiar with today. Right? There's something called the Federalists. Right? The Federalists would have been the likes of Alexander Hamilton, John Adams, right? They believed in a strong central government. It was usually people that had a little bit more wealth, higher social status, right? And then you have the Jeffersonians, right, or the Democratic Republicans, which of course people like Jefferson, Madison, right? They believed in more like agriculture, right? They didn't really like bankers, and they kind of had really voted for like strong state and local government. Right? And so you sort of had these parties that started forming. This is very interesting here. So what I have here is a nice little sort of map of just one session, right? This is from 1795, so it's just one session. But it goes to show you, you're going to have the yellow, this is Congress, the yellow are the Federalists. Yes, yellow are the Federalists, and the blue are the Democratic Republicans. And you can see it's very much like unlike what we see today. You have people that have different parties sitting amongst each other. They're not divided one side or the other. It was, if you were buddies with your guy here, even though he was from a different party, it was still okay to kind of sit next to each other, right? Well, not saying that there weren't disagreements here, but it seemed much different that it was okay to kind of sit. Like I mentioned before, you guys just make nuts and that he liked sitting next to each other. So he would like play that seat every day. But everybody else kind of sat there. So he was keen on sitting there. So the political parties would come into play. Obviously, a lot when there were disagreements, things like that. But it really came into play when we had to pick a new president. So George Washington, like I said, sworn in, second term, upstairs, right? After 2 terms, 8 years, he's tired. I don't want to do this anymore. Old, I want to go home, Mount Vernon, and retire on his own with his president. And this is the first time, he's the only guy that they've ever known, right? Who's president. What do we do now? Right? We're in the Constitution, we do this electoral college thing, but it's always been unanimous for Washington. Everybody always just wanted him. Now he's not running, now what do we do? Right? So here's what they did way back in the day, right? They would have the electoral college. And for the electoral college, right, everybody would vote for 2 people. Any 2 people you want. The only stipulation is they couldn't be 2 people from the same state. Okay? So you couldn't vote for Thomas Jefferson and James Madison because they were both from Virginia. But you could vote for Thomas Jefferson, you could vote for Aaron Burr, he was from New York. You could vote for John Adams, he was from Massachusetts. So you just pick any 2 people. And here's what would happen. Person with the most votes gets to be president. Yay! And the person who gets the second most votes gets to be vice president. Now, did it matter whether they were both from the same party, if they both had the same beliefs? Nope. It was just somebody had the most votes, they become president. Somebody was runner-up, they suddenly become vice president. Right? So what happened is because you have these political parties forming in the meantime, we would have had, what happened is, John Adams had the most votes. And his rival, political rival, they used to be friends, they used to work in the same space, they were on the same committee for the Declaration, right? His rival, Thomas Jefferson, is runner-up. Adams only wins by 3 electoral votes. That's how close it was, right? But they don't like each other. So how is this going to work? Now they need to work together, right? So, everyone's just sort of on pins and needles, right? What's going to happen? We never had this before. How's it going to work? Well, luckily, it worked out okay. March 4th, 1797, 3 people walked through that door. Now, mind you, there's already hundreds of people in here already, right? Members of both the Senate and representatives, maybe some invited guests, right? The gallery would have been full. Thousands of people, most likely outside, trying to look in, right? Surrounding the building, right? But 3 people walked in the door. George Washington, right? John Adams, you have Thomas Jefferson. George Washington comes in, probably the happiest of everybody here. He's finished. I'm passing it off. Tom, right? I'm finished. So he comes in, right? He sort of hands it off to Adams and sits down and becomes a private citizen, right? Adams comes in. Adams sort of takes the reins from Washington, addresses the members here, and is sworn in as the second president of the United States. And Thomas Jefferson sworn in as the vice president. This is the first time in our nation's history that there has been a peaceful transfer of power from one administration to the other. And the great thing about this place, and it's why I call it historic and gem, right, is because it's the first time, right, that it shows that the hope that we had when all of that was being done, when we wrote the Declaration, right, when we wrote the Constitution, and we were hoping for this democracy, right, but it's the first time that the hope that we had way back then would be proven true, that it could actually happen and be accomplished, what we were hoping for. And I think that's a fantastic thing. So hopefully, I've given you enough stuff to convince you. It's okay if you still like the hall over on the hall, right? Because that's all we're talking about. But I hope I gave you enough stuff to light the building, at least a little bit, right? So now what we're going to do, I appreciate you sitting here and listening to me talk, right? And now what we're going to do, if you're able to, right, is going to go up to the 2nd floor so you can see the Senate chamber and some of the committee rooms that are up there. Now it is 2 sets of very steep steps. So it is your choice whether you think you're able to go up and join us there. If not, there is like a kiosk in the corner there that will show you pictures and explain a little bit about what the space looks like up there. But you're welcome to finish taking any pictures that you want to take down here. All right, make sure you grab all of your belongings though, because once you come down from the space, you're going to exit out the north doors towards the front of the hall. All right, and if you go upstairs, look around, I can do Q&A, so any questions that you have about down here or up there, I can answer when we get up there, all right? Thank you guys so much.
Let's roll. Guess we go either way. Whoa. The Senate Secretary's office. Wow. Isn't this something?
Any questions, guys?
The West Committee Room?
So there's, fancy space, less people, much warmer up here.
And the East Committee Room.
Back in the day.
You're good.
So you would have had Washington come in as secretary, right?
So this is where George Washington was sworn in for his second term. Amazing.
So our videos will run.
Also afraid of starting another war so soon after the first one. That he kind of
Massive in his leather case, and he's still there.
like Jefferson.
That's the feeling.
Yeah. Alright guys, we want to finish taking the last bit of pictures, making our way back down. We do have another tour starting very soon.
Continue straight through, go past that archway, turn to the room on your left. Continue straight through the archway, turn to the room on your left. Help me out. This crowd looks like it needs some help. Now, you're going to have to trust me, all right? Touch this bar. Did you get a shock? Electric shock? Well, tell them. Tell them you come a little closer. Thank you. All right, now, how can we begin this? I know. We have not been in each other's company for all that long. But you know what I detected in this group? I detected integrity. intelligence. Which means that if I ask a question, I am sure I will get the correct answer. Should we put that to the test? Sure, why not? All right. Who here in this group, raise your hand if you thought you were coming to visit Independence Hall. Raise your hand. Who here in this group, raise your hand if you thought you were coming to visit the Pennsylvania State House. Raise your hand. All right. Who here in this group, raise your hand if you thought, boy, does that sound like a trick question? I'm not doing anything. All right, well, you know, it was a trick question. The trick being, no matter what you answered, you would have been correct. Today, and for many years, since about the 1820s, this building has been called Independence Hall. When construction began on the building in 1732, it was built to be the Pennsylvania State House, the seat of colonial government in the city of Philadelphia. So, as I said when I wrote the answer, win-win. Longfield had a question like that. What nonsense. Now, in your brief visit with us, you will see 2 rooms, both of them on this floor. Yeah, I know, as soon as you say this floor, what does that get any room thinking about? Hey, what's on that floor? What's upstairs? What aren't we seeing? Well, what is upstairs is where the colonial governor had his offices, his work office, his private office, plus there is a large ballroom / dining room affair that runs the length of the building from 6th Street to 5th Street. But as I look around, I don't see any members of the governor's staff. I definitely don't see the governor, so we're going to stay on this floor. And you know what? You should not have, thank you, you should not have any complaint. You know why not? You are already in the only room in this entire building that you, the general public, could have gained admission to. And the reason for that has to do with the purpose of a room such as this. Previous group is exiting, I give you permission. Shout it out. What do you think this room was? Anybody? Court, very good. Courtroom, very good. It was specifically the courtroom of the Supreme Court of the colony of Pennsylvania. Statue of Justice, way up high, looking down over where the judges could sit. Looking down over the different sized jury boxes, depending upon the type of the case being held. Looking down over the lawyer's table. Note, I did say table, not separate tables for prosecution and defense like we have in our country today. That came from the mother country of England. Something else came from the mother country of England. Where I am standing right now, the dock, where the prisoner would stand trial. What say ye, members of this jury? Does my standing in something like this, simply my standing here, make me appear to be more innocent or more guilty?
Guilty.
Tough crowd. You know what? I, as an Englishman in the colony of Pennsylvania, I can take comfort in the fact I enjoy the freedom the liberty to be considered innocent until proven guilty. As I appear in a court of law, represented by counsel before a jury of my peers, and this freedom, this liberty, was enjoyed by all of the men meeting in that next room. They had that alike. They had that in their common background. Most of them, when they came for the events we speak of, they did not know each other one bit. But they had that alike. And I like to think you're setting off on a great endeavor. Hey, nice to have a common background, don't you agree? And speaking of that room, hey, enough talk about it. Let's go see it. Now we are a large group. That room's slightly smaller. The ladies use the entire space. Go ahead. Go to your left, go to your right. Do not stop dead in your tracks before you go. Okay, if anyone would like to take a picture without me, hey, have a chance. Then I'll give you a warning. I am coming back into your viewpoint here. That you would be visiting the most important historic site in this country. Am I saying there aren't other important historic sites? Not in the least. I am just putting forth the argument until you actually have a country. How can anywhere else be as or more important? In this room, in 1776, we declare ourselves independent from the Empire of Great Britain. In this exact same room, 11 years after that, we declare ourselves a nation. So I think no doubt about it, number one. It's the end result of a very contentious decade. I'm speaking of the 1760s. Between, on the one hand, the British Parliament, on the other hand, their American colonies. British Parliament would say, we just defended you from the French, from the Indians. Was an awful lot of money. Isn't it only fair? Isn't it only just you pay back something to us? The colonists would be of the opinion, who, sir, is determining how much we must pay back to you? You in your parliament, where we have no representation? That is taxation without
representation.
Genesis of the trade. So both sides, they can't understand the other. Why can't they just pick up a phone and call across the Atlantic Ocean? I know, go on TV. No. Something happens on one side of the Atlantic Ocean, the news or an action would be taken. News of that action will not reach the other side for 4 to 6 weeks, depending upon prevailing winds, depending upon the quality of ship taking a message back and forth. So both sides are drifting apart. It will eventually descend into violence. Some show of hands in this room. Raise your hand. You ever hear of something called the Boston Massacre? Raise your hand. All right. How about the Boston Tea Party? Raise your hand. These events happened over a couple hundred years ago. And we still know their names today. Boston Tea Party takes place December 1773. For Parliament, that was it. They had had enough till that tea that is destroyed is paid for. We're going to punish you, Massachusetts. Over the next several months, Parliament will enact a series of laws to punish the colony of Massachusetts. They will call them the Coercive Acts. Does anyone in this room know what they were called? Those acts were called in the colonies. How about the Intolerable Acts? Think of those two words. Coercive. We are coercing you. We are forcing you to do what we want. How are you doing that? How are you attempting to do that? By something that is intolerable. We cannot stand it. We cannot take it. Among the coercive / intolerable acts, local government in Massachusetts on any level ceases to exist. Every decision made from London. British soldiers will be quartered in your own private residence and at your own expense. The port of Boston is closed to civilian travel. None in, none out. Scares the other colonies. If Parliament can do something this bad, this severe to one of us, they can do it to all of us. We're going to get together and talk about this, come up with a common plan. Where can we be? Ooh. This is the audience participation part of the show. How many colonies were there?
13.
Can anyone take away one, the colony of Pennsylvania, from 13 for me? 12. Can we divide that 12 by 2?
6.
Let's recap. We began with 13 colonies. We took away one, the colony of Pennsylvania, leaving us with 12. We divided that 12 by 2 and got 6 other colonies to the north and east of Pennsylvania. 6 other colonies to the south and west of Pennsylvania. Plus what was located in the colony of Pennsylvania, the city of Philadelphia. At that point in time, the largest, the most civilized city on the entire North American continent. I believe the phrase is, talk about a no-brainer. Come on, what else you do? The assembled colonies meet in the fall of 1774 in something called the First Continental Congress. That Congress does not meet in this building. It meets in a building called Carpenter's Hall, which is located a couple of blocks in that direction. First Continental Congress doesn't accomplish all that much. Does plan for the future. And you know what? Just in case things don't improve, you know what? Let's schedule a second one. May of 1775. Yes, no question. Have things improved by May of 1775? No! War has broken out. Hey, if that's improvement, boy, I'd hate to see if everything went south. That Second Continental Congress is definitely held. But they did not go back to Carpenter's Hall. Why not? You know why not? Something happened that could happen today. The office space was not available. The Carpenters Company, to this day, still run Carpenter's Hall. It's not a Park Service building. Get a chance, check it out. It's a neat building inside. They did not guarantee the use of their facility. The Pennsylvania Assembly, they had met in here. They offered the use of this space. They said, hey, we'll go upstairs. Royal Governor, woo, he's hit the road. And that is why, if you will Google, check it out on the internet, hey, where was the Declaration of Independence wrote? You will say in the Assembly Room. That's where the name comes from. The following year, in June of 1776, right here in this room. A man by the name of Richard Henry Lee from Virginia. He will stand and introduce a resolution. Resolve, these united colonies are and what should be free and, he's going to use a big word, independent states. We're going to do it. And what would we do today if we took such a big step? We'd issue a press release. Hey, this is why we did what we did. You want to know why we did it? Hey, just read our press release. And in its initial form, that is what the Declaration of Independence was. It was a press release. In the finished document, 18 different sentences will begin with the exact same two words. He has, he has, he has. The he being King George III. A couple of the he hases. He has caused foreign troops to be quartered among us. He has closed our ports and harbors. A couple circling right back to the events in Boston. A handwritten copy of the Declaration is ordered to be made. In the room you are standing in, folks, August 2nd, 1776. 50 of the 56 men who will sign the document, sign it right here. There's a story that goes with, well, why is John Hancock's signature so large? The myth is supposedly Hancock boasted, signing so large, King George III won't need his spectacles to read my signature. The reality, more likely, and I bring this up to emphasize the fact, all of the men we speak about, they were real people. Real, living, breathing human beings. Not just pictures in a book, portraits hung on a wall. They were real people. And you have more in common with John Hancock than you could imagine. Are you going to tell me you have never been part of a large group of people signing a birthday card, signing a sympathy card, and you're going first, and you don't realize how much room you have or you don't have? That's probably a lot closer to the truth of the matter. Wow. Whatever the truth of that matter is, that's the least important thing about it. The important thing is what these men did here in this room. Pledge their fortune, honor, their lives to this undertaking. Woo! That guy goes say, whoa, he's pulling out all the stops. They don't justify it. Signing of this doesn't end the American Revolution by a long shot. It will not end until 1783. Then we have to decide, are we one country, 13 little countries? Do we invent a nation? We do it right back here in this room in 1787. Now, folks, I've been doing these tours for a very long time. And after a while, even got that visual clue of the next tour group right behind us. Do get the feeling we are going to have to wind this up. You will have to grant us the pleasure of your company another time. Maybe you'll get a tour leads with the Constitutional Summer. But I will leave you with one item from that summer of 1787. And at the same time, answer one of the most asked questions when people come to an historic site. What's original? What was here when they were here? Answer in this room? Hardly anything. I know, they're playing it and trying to sell it as the most important room in American history. Yes, it is because of what happened in this room. Not necessarily because of how it was furnished. We are looking at it as an incredibly active, okay, we did have air conditioning. Nobody complains about that in the summer. Recreation of how everything looked. Simple north to south seating arrangement, meaning the men from the New England colonies over against those windows just keep coming around. New Jersey, Pennsylvania. One original item in this room has to do with the Constitutional Convention. In that convention, George Washington was the president of the convention. This is the chair Washington sat in all summer long. At the end of the convention, Benjamin Franklin makes a statement. Now, the innate design on the top of Washington's chair, he had one, was it a rising sun? Was it a setting sun? But now, based upon what we have accomplished, I am truly pleased to believe this indeed be a rising sun. Sometimes when that good optimism, good feeling, hey, it's good, and don't mind. That does bring the tour to a conclusion. Now, don't do this yet, but we are all going to go out that door, turn left. Note I said we, meaning, hey, I'm going right out there with you. So if anyone had any questions about anything you saw, anything I said, I will be out there happy to answer them. One final item, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming by and visiting with us today. Thank you.
That's the same answer as before?